Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we give you the strategies, the mindsets, and the frameworks to building your own and dare I say, seven-figure coaching business. I am, of course, your host with the most, the road dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the Dolphin King himself, the King of the Caribbean, Karl Bryan. Shoots, welcome to the program.
Shoots. I'm glad you didn't say man, myth, legend, because that is
No.
Mr. Adrian Osh, and we got to leave that. As his, no doubt, that's the one that's been overused over the years by everybody, but that's what I always call him. And but anyways, how are you doing, man? What's happening? Let's rock.
Busy is all I can say. It is next level. It's funny how people are like slowing down this time of year. I'm like, please, I love a little bit of a slowdown right now.
Yeah, I know the feeling, bro. I know the feeling, man.
It's pretty crazy. Anyways, let's in the name of busyness, let's be as efficient. Let's get my German efficiency into play here and dive right in. Not that I follow much of the news. I did see something, and I'm just like, I wonder what KB has to say about that. And that is our good friend, Mr. Donald Trump, wants to give, what was it, like $1,000 on July, like, what was it, for kids or something like that, to invest in the S&P. I'm not sure. Did you hear about this? And if you did, what do you think?
Oh, that's not where we're going to start, dude. Okay. What do you say? So I think it's great. I don't know enough about it, to be honest with you, to speak intelligently about it. Nuts and bolts. Kids born after July 4th are going to be provided $1,000 that's, on their behalf. And basically it's going to be their account and it's going to be invested into the S&P 500. I can tell you a lot of parents are going to want their kids to be delivered SA. That could be good, could be bad, but I think that's going to be coming. Bottom line, again, not an expert in this area, and I haven't looked into it enough to be able to speak intelligently, like I said, but the bottom line, teaching children to invest and giving them the mechanism to do so is amazing on the surface, in my opinion. I can also say, as I understand it, parents are limited to invest $5,000 a year tax deferred, but corporations are able to invest as much as they want. That means that the ultra wealthy can invest as I can see it, as much money as they want. Let's just use hundreds of millions of dollars in the case where they've got it into like a government account, and the government is going to be, charged with maintaining it for them for free, right? So it'd be like the kid's account, but no doubt, the affluent mom and dad will be managing it, right? That's wild to me. And I think, and again, don't know enough about it. I could be horrifically wrong here, but I do not think I am. That's a loophole that I think they're going to need to look at and close as they move along. And it basically, I believe the foundation of it is the Dell family, right? Like Michael Dell Computers. They donated like $6 billion. And by the way, his stock jumped like over $6 billion immediately afterwards. So he effectively got his money back already, and some good PR. So there might be some financial arbitrage we could all learn from there. I also want to say, his wife, she's got like this pic going around, right? Like basically took a photo. It was not a complimentary photo by any stretch. And people are sharing it and making fun of her and whatnot. I just think it's disgusting. Something you need to deal with as you become more and more successful. Doing big things attracts harsh critics. I got to say, let's do better, people. It's crazy. But anyway, Shoots. Yeah, that's, I think it's great. And let's see. But I think that there will be some, there'll be some interesting times, and there'll also be some very wild adjustments necessary to it over the years as people take advantage of it. But I don't know. I think it's good. There you go. My answer.
There you go. Real nice. Hey, speaking of maybe hot takes, I don't know. I think we can all agree that we use our phones way too much. I know I dread that Sunday morning iPhone usage message that I get. But anywho, somebody was asking about excessive phone use and was just wondering, is this something that we should be guiding our clients on, or like what are your thoughts around that?
Excessive phone use. I don't know if I'm the right guy to be asking, but I don't. Um, what would I say? So phone use. Look, and by the way, I like the question because at the end of the day, we got to solve the very real problems. So I think a primary reason your client will hire you, I would dare say it's kind of like, level of anxiety, unhappiness. Like they just get to a point where they say, it's time, it's over, I've got to change. If I keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, they refer to that as insanity. You know what I mean? So they get to the point and all of a sudden, then you put the same message in front of them 8 times in a row, and then they respond the eighth time because it's just all of a sudden they just have that conversation with themselves. They see the light, right? So, like I'd say, your client's level of anxiety, their unhappiness, their feeling of being unsettled is often rooted in that phone. What do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy. And that phone that you're probably holding right now is a comparison machine. And again, to be clear, though, I have 100% addiction to this damn phone. And it's something that I need to manage along with everybody else. I often talk about, like you're not looking to optimize for happiness. You're looking to optimize for peace, or more to the point, this is what I'm looking to do. Why I stay away from the news and, stuff that's political, to the best of my, my opinion is I don't have an opinion anymore, man, because it's just too crazy. It just steals my peace more than anything else, I can tell you. But let me tell you this. This might be interesting. Like most people think that phone addiction is about dopamine, right? It's not. It's about cortisol. And what's cortisol? It's effectively your stress hormone. It's like endlessly scrolling and looking online. It meets unmet needs for social connection and thrill, right? And what does it do? Like scrolling and staring at your phone temporarily calms your nervous system, which, calms your stress hormone, right? But like fast food, fast food doesn't satisfy your nutritional needs, right? You just end up hungrier, shortly thereafter, where your phone doesn't nourish your social needs. Therefore, what happens? Your cortisol levels increase, your survival instincts feel, I think that the experts would call it threatened. And because it feels like, it feels like you've lost something, right? So the solution, lower your cortisol levels and you'll immediately lower your need to pick up that phone. That much I do know. So again, you lower your, cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Good news, you asked me how to do that. It's just the basics of well-being. Like morning exercise will make that phone less attractive. Sleep at least 6 hours a night, ideally 8. That phone is going to be less attractive. Morning sunlight, balanced diet, staying hydrated, avoiding, caffeine, alcohol, and probably nicotine falls into that nowadays. Doing things like breath work. Like if you hum for long periods of time, like call it a minute or more, you'll be if you're super stressed out, hum for a minute and tell me how you're feeling. And I can tell you, if you have the same experience I do, you will feel more calm immediately. And if you do it for an extended period of time, like 30 seconds, a minute, I think you might be, impressed with the results, and understanding that business owners, if you're ambitious, you're anxious, right? The end. It's the price you got to pay. And by the way, legit social connections, and I'm not talking about online, I'm talking about in person, get around people. And I want to strengthen that by saying, track it. Like, how many times do you go out? Like last night, I went and had a couple beers with a few buddies. And again, 2 beers, the end. I, have 3 or 4. It can affect my sleep. 2 beers, I don't find affects me, doesn't affect me, for the most part. And let's assume it does affect me a little bit. The social interaction and the laughs and the giggles and the inside jokes and just hanging out with a couple buds. It's a net, you know what I mean? At the end of the night, it's a net positive, right? That might be for you and that might not be for you. That's fine. Go for a walk. Go to the beach, to the park, wherever you can. Anyway, at the end of the day, though, track social interactions and sprinting 2 times a week. I've done a little bit of homework on this, and I got to tell you, I got a bit of a sciatic nerve issue, so I'm managing this one. But sprinting a couple times a week can be really, really good. Supplements like vitamin C, magnesium, zinc, just all the things that are generally legitimately good for you, I think are going to help you. That phone will become less attractive to your client. That phone will become less attractive to you. That phone becomes less attractive to me. At the gym, like I don't put my phone down when I go to the gym, and I don't touch the thing until I walk out. And I can tell you that my desire to pick it up as I'm walking out of the gym is not high. And I'm gonna give credit to the gym and lifting some weights and a little bit of adrenaline with, that dynamic. Like, okay, so let's try turn this into a flywheel, right? So you go phone use up at 12 o'clock, cortisol increases at 3 o'clock, your nervous system deregulation, anxiety, 6 o'clock, unmet needs. What are those? Novelty, connection, excitement. That's why you keep scrolling. That's at 9 o'clock. And what does that do? That leads back to more phone use at 12 o'clock. So at the end of the day, I think this is a problem to solve for you and your clients, certainly me and Road Dog. I know it is. So do as I say, not as I do on this one, because again, this is just truthfully, this is something that I manage, get a little bit better at it. At the end of the day, I got a lot going on, and that phone provides a mechanism for me to send emails and texts and communication and listen to stuff. So I got to just manage it. And by the way, and maybe more importantly, the kids are struggling in this wildly. I've got a 12-year-old daughter. She does not have a phone. She is not getting a phone anytime soon. Hard no on that one. But I can tell you the phone and the iPad, those things are like addiction machines. And why? Because Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I mean, these guys hire dozens and dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds of PhD level employees that really, really dig deep onto this stuff to say, how do we keep them coming back? How do we, make them more and more addicted to this stupid thing? So bottom line, look, measure. And how do you do it? You got to, if you want to lose weight, what do you got to do? Get a scale and stand on the thing. If you want to have good financials, what do you got to do? You got to get a P&L and stare at the thing, right? And then get another one. Like a one P&L is useless. You need to have 3 P&Ls so that we can compare. There's relationships and trends. I won't talk about that. But at the end of the day, a comparable. I can't, like if you're 200 pounds, I don't know how you're doing until I know how much you weighed 6 months ago. So if you're a 180, 100, 6 months ago, then you're not doing very well, quite possibly, depending upon your height and frame. But if you were 200 pounds, if you were 240 pounds 6 months ago and now you're 200 pounds, guess what? You're doing well, right? So comparison. So what do you got to do? You've got a mechanism on your phone where you can track how much you're staring at a thing per day. I would encourage you to do that. And by the way, I also think easing off versus cold turkey is the right approach, because you're a business owner. Like me, you're busy and you got a lot going on. So you're going to be able to cut that thing off cold turkey. That would probably cost you. I think that might be a net negative when all things were said and done. Anyways, manage your phone use. And I think what you'll in turn be doing is managing your anxiety, your happiness levels, and your levels of peace organically, and your clients will do the same. But I think that's a good question, Shoots, and I think that's a problem to solve big time, bud.
And speaking of the, there's so much gold in them hills right there, but what you just said, and so many wild jokes I could do, but I'm just going to say, just real quick on the cutting back and not going cold turkey. Many, many moons ago, when the young Road Dog was still living in Calgary and was quitting smoking, you know what I did, Chiz? Is I smoked quite a bit back in the day. I literally drew a line on half of the cigarette. And I would go through the same habits, because again, it's all habitual, right? It's like at this coffee break, at this time, I'm going out, I'm having a smoke, and I would only smoke half a cigarette. Well, guess what? Instantly, I'm down 50%.
Yep.
And then the next step was, okay, well, maybe I don't need that coffee break. I'll wait until my lunch. And then I would just systematically kind of go through and audit my day and go, okay, well, where else? What else can I cut out? And then next thing you know, you're down to maybe 25%. And at that point, it just becomes a pain in the ass and you just quit. So there you go.
Well done, Shoots. Well done on beating the habit, bud.
There you go. You just talked about the kids. Everybody loves the kids. Listen, our coaches and their clients, they're all, they've got their own kids that they're trying to guide. Also probably talking and maybe working with some younger entrepreneurs. And you've really talked a lot about how kids have it tough moving forward, right? Like the traditional American dream seems to be dead, like owning a home, right? Maybe having a large family. So Is this something that we should be speaking to coaches, like, or should coaches be talking to their clients about this? Like, what's your hot take on all of that?
Mm, my hot take on so guiding effectively, look, we're guiding our kids and guiding young entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Again, big problem to solve, big time. I would say this. I'm working with a 23-year-old entrepreneur, or I've got a, child who I want to, guide, creative. They want to, again, be successful. We want them to have a great life, right? So they need to not drive for an easy life. And I see that a lot, right? But they need to drive to allow nothing to phase them, right? Translation, temperament. It's the silver bullet. They need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, just think of this. If you've got a low ability to tolerate uncomfortable situations, you're going to have small accomplishments in life. If you've got a medium tolerance for uncomfortable situations, you're going to have, let's call that average, or you're going to have okay accomplishments, right? Um, if you have a high tolerance for uncomfortable situations, I think you're leading yourself towards a big life, and more to the point, maybe here, notable accomplishments. We don't want them to drive for an easy life. We want them to drive to have nothing to phase them, and not just their kids. That's Road Dog. That's me. That's you. Right? Like the stress that I have personally endured over the years building an 8-figure business coaching company, I can tell you truthfully, they have been insane, right? To the level of, without doubt, unhealthiness. Is that a thing? Right. So, you know what I mean? It has not been good for my health, mental nor physical. But at the end of the day, the way I see it, you got the opportunity to sit down or stand up when you face these challenges. And the solution is you got to just stand up, right? Hit it head on and then do your best. That's an uncomfortable situation that I'm defining there. You got to try, go at it. Not to make it easier, but to allow the situation, knowing that it's going to be chaos and just not letting it bother you, right? So as a frame, right? I'm thinking like these are two things that I'd consider. What's the problem they're solving, right? They've got a business. What are they ultimately looking to solve? Where's that uncomfort going to come from, both in their clients and maybe that they're going to face? Um, and by the way, slightly different than what you're asking, but like 7 big problems to solve and make all kinds of money. And this is a note I literally, put into my phone over the last week. It's like the loneliness. Loneliness is an epidemic. So helping the average person solve their loneliness kind of in existence. Is that the right word? No, you know what I mean? Their current state of loneliness, solving that, a big problem to solve. Or men's desire for status, that goes back 1,000 years, never going to change, right? Like, remember, we used to compete against the Joneses, and now, or we used to try to keep up with the Joneses, and now we're trying to keep up with the Kardashians, kind of thing, right? We used to try and be high status in our community, and now we got to be high, where you log on to Facebook and you see all the, the influencers and their Lamborghinis and their Ferraris and their this and their that and their bombastic style. That's what men are up against competing, right? I think that is a problem to solve, right? And a very profitable one. Women's want for beauty, that's never going away. Let's put it that way. Elderly staying healthy for a longer period of time. Do we have an aging population? The answer is yes. Guess what? Big problem to solve and a big total addressable market. That's the makings of a good problem to solve and a good business that could be built. Children's education. Introduce me to a parent that doesn't want their kid to be well educated, and you're going to have a tough time, right? So again, children's education. Have a look at Mr. Wonderful, the Canadian guy on the Shark Tank, right? Kevin O'Leary. He sold his children's education business, and I'm talking decades ago, for like, I don't know the number, but I think it rhymes with 4 billion, something to that effect. So that, you know what I mean? It's only more exciting today, right? That's how we got his big break financially. Also a big one, and I like Tony Robbins has made millions and millions and millions of dollars doing this, and it might not be obvious on the surface, but rich people's fear of loss, right? I remember there's a movie way back when, I think it's Wall Street. Wall Street, loved the movie, right? Daryl Hannah, who I think is drop dead gorgeous, just a little FYI. But anyway, so she says there's a famous line in the movie, and it's like she says, you're better to have never had it than to have had it and lost it. Right. So a lot of people see people that are, affluent and have the houses and the cars and all this stuff. Let me tell you, there's a pretty good chance they got a pretty deep-seated fear of loss, and this is something they're willing to spend money on and something they're thinking about. If you want to get inside their head, there's a problem to solve, right? And then poor people might be the wrong, like let's call it the middle class and below, their desire to change their financial reality, which is kind of what we're talking about here. And we talked about earlier, just changing their financial reality, right? So that's like a frame. Like, what problem are you solving, and are there profitable ones? And I think those are 7 profitable things to solve, right? And then having young own things is critical as a society, right? Translation: not be renters and relying on the establishment, right? We need young people to own homes, own stocks, own businesses. And when that happens, you'll stop seeing the young people vote and desire a socialist society. And currently, that is a huge issue many of the big players are talking about. You watch kids getting interviewed on, YouTube or TV, what have you, and it's like, what would you prefer? And they all want, automatic income, right? That's a problem to solve. And by the way, I would dare say that you would want socialism too if you were in that position where you felt like the system was working against you. It wasn't built for you to win, right? So answer your question. They're getting priced out. Do I think that the American dream, the dream of owning a home, having a big family, like you said, is realistic? And it is, if you're willing to work really, really hard, but it is available to less people now. And the reason is financial arbitrage. Here's what's happening. Big hedge funds like BlackRock, they need to provide a return to their investors, right? Their investors want a return. That's a 101. Profit is the domino that knocks over all the other dominoes. Well, what are the hedge funds doing? They're identifying good neighborhoods close to water, schools, and business, right? So that's what drives real estate: water, schools, business, right? Business, translation, jobs. Like, the kids will move to where the job is, and then the parents often follow in retirement to help with grandkids, and they want to stay close to their kids, right? You've seen that dynamic play out hundreds of thousands of times, right? Not going to change. Well, the hedge funds buy hundreds of homes with cash, offer above asking price without even visiting the house, right? Like, they'll buy this is happening right now. They'll buy a $300,000 house for $400,000 to get the deal done without batting an eyelid, right? The person that sells the house is understandably, feeling like they had a huge win. But those sales drive the price of real estate up instantly in those desirable neighborhoods, right? Well, once the hedge fund controls enough of the neighborhood, guess what they do? They sell a few of the homes back to themselves. And yes, this is dodgy. This is financial arbitrage 101. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. You do your own homework and you tell me this is what's happening. But a shell company that they own and control buys the house back at like 500 grand. What just happened? That's the new market rate in the neighborhood. Property taxes go up from those semi-fake sales to themselves, right? And then they rent the homes back to the families at like $2,000 a month, where they previously had a $1,500 a month mortgage, right? So they create the problem of home ownership and then sell it back to you in a solution of rent, right? Like, and again, maybe I'm wrong here, maybe I'm right, but I think I'm pretty darn on the money. By 2035, hedge funds will own over 50% of the family type neighborhoods near good schools, water, and businesses, right? So kids won't buy a house. Why? Because they can't afford it, right? And they're basically going to rent from the hedge funds, and it's already happening. So it's not a housing crisis. It's a transfer of wealth from families to the uber wealthy and pricing out the young. And 50-year mortgages, we talked about that a few weeks back. It's just going to make it worse, right? So the stock market, but what's happening? You see, go to YouTube, go to your Facebook profile right now, and you'll probably see somebody within 5 minutes talking about this, where the stock market keeps going up and up and up. And everybody's wondering, the economy's not going that well, but the stock market keeps going up and up and up. How does it work, right? So, and remember this, I've said this for yonks, and I'll continue to say it until it changes. Fiscal policy is decided by 70-year-olds, 70-year-olds nearing retirement with assets. So guess what their decisions favor? 70-year-olds with assets moving towards retirement, and not our young. I'll let you decide if that's a good idea. Again, maybe I'm horrifically off and maybe I'm on the money. You decide, do your own homework. This is what I see. And I think inflation is a tax from lower and middle class to the wealthy, right? So you go, Karl, what is the solution to what you're outlining here? Okay. And it is real simple. You got to buy and hold assets that, good, bad, indifferent. We have to encourage our young to buy real estate and to buy companies and to start companies and to own stocks. And crypto is an asset class as well that I think needs to fall into that category. So I think we got to be convinced them to do that. And not to mention, and I got to say this as we're talking about young folks, not to mention our young have got to stay away from gambling in all forms. Like my dad was a pro gambler. I know this dynamic well. The number one addiction that leads to suicide, it's not alcohol, it's not drugs. It is what? It is gambling. It disgusts me when I watch a hockey game and I see Wayne Gretzky promoting a gambling app. I just, because again, why is it so bad? These kids have these phones in their pockets with gambling apps and they're like carrying around a casino in their pocket. How does that have a good ending? And then they've got pretty girls, doing commercials and talking about how they lost a bit of money, but that's just part of the game, right? What Warren Buffett, you want to be rich. What's his 2 rules of investing? Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. Well, gambling doesn't work out very well most of the time. So anyway, so Shoots, and again, I'm just talking about the young folks. They need to be taught where I'm guiding a young entrepreneur. They need to be taught to invest on a monthly basis, make it automatic. What are you going to do? Dollar cost average. That's Warren Buffett 101. But yeah, it's a battle. And knowing this, if you agree with me and I'm right, and I'm not saying I am, and I'm not saying I'm not, you decide, but knowing this to be reality won't solve it if I'm correct, right? But it could save you and them by knowing what's happening and what they're really up against, because, understanding, like clearly defining the question, they say it is halfway answered. I understanding this is the problem that we're up against. At least they've got a little bit of a shot, right? And again, own assets is the solution in an inflationary society. The U.S. government, I'll just talk about the U.S. The U.S. government is printing trillions of dollars per year. Okay, the inflation is a thing, and not going away until that problem is solved. Anyways, and then I'd let, if that is a problem to solve, I'm going to let you decide if the government is up to the task. I've got my opinions. You can have yours. But I think our young citizens are up against it, man. And truthfully, it is frustrating. But that's what I'd be doing. But remember, we don't want to drive them towards having an easy life, right? Do you know a trust fund, baby? How does that work out? Okay. And the answer is rehab a good percentage of the time. And they tend not to be the happiest individuals. We're not looking for an easy life. We're looking for them to drive towards nothing bothering them. Right. So it's temperament over brilliance all day long, twice on Sunday. I don't know, Shoots. That's my answer, bud.
It's interesting because my brain is going into a million different directions on this one too, because it's like, okay, so one thought is, yeah, but, right? Like, yeah, it's their inflation, everything else. Yeah, but they've got advantages that we never had. They've got AI. Like, it's just, and again, for those not using AI, my goodness, like how far behind are you now? But it's one of those things. So you've got to leverage the tools at your disposal. And then the other thing that I just wanted to point out was, you talk about trust fund babies and all that. It's like, yeah, show me somebody who grew up poor and had the drive, and they probably made it. So, and it's one of those. I guess, how do I put it? It's like we're coaching people to run successful businesses, but please don't lose the human element of making sure that your kids don't become trust fund babies and end up in rehab. You know what I mean? Like, it's.
Yeah, but Shoots. So but how does that come to be? Because mom and dad don't want them to have the struggle that they had, right? But you know what? The magic is in the struggle, right? Like you're actually taking away the greatest gift that you can give them, which is the struggle. So,
well, and even you see it even in youth sports, right? Obviously, for those that know, I coach my daughter's soccer team, but it's like, it's. Sometimes you look at other coaches, you take a look at parents, and it's like, it's as if they look at you sideways if you push their kid from time to time. Now, mind you, most parents, again, like they're sort of in our demographic, so they actually enjoy it and they encourage it. Probably more so than I'm comfortable with, but it's just one of those things. Like there's parents out there that just are out to lunch and think that their kid should be on the varsity team. It's like, no, your kid sucks. But they need to learn. They need to be cut. They need to face that adversity. Like our girls lost in a brutal game last year at provincials, and that was to make it to the gold medal game. Well, okay, we didn't make it, but we won silver. Are they bitter? Yes. Is that a motivator? Absolutely. Are we going to crush it this year? I sure as heck hope so, because these girls are fired up for it. So anyways, it's such an interesting dynamic, right? Like it's just,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like shoots, Michael Jordan doesn't get cut from the high school football team. I don't think he becomes Michael Jordan, right?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah,
that's
fair enough. And I guess, it's no different in the NFL, right? Like if you're just a privileged quarterback who's been getting calls from the league for 3 to 5 years, and all of a sudden that stops, I could see how you could whine about that. But anyways, enough about my hatred towards the Kansas City Chiefs. Anyways, so there you go. Hey, listen, last week, I feel like we're doing like a emotional healing show today, Carl. Last week you said anxiety is the price of ambition. I frickin' love that. Somebody asked for you to expand on that. Maybe just thinking again of the young folks we're trying to hand over control to. Like, can you address that a little bit real quick?
yeah. I'm going to say again, anxiety is the price of ambition. Write that one down. If you're ambitious, so be gentle with yourself. Be gentle, right? It's like, yeah. Okay, here's a frame. Um, Riding up a bike trail, okay, every day is brutal, right? Until it's not. And then we can say set on a bike trail, running, 10 miles, running the hill. At the end of the day, that riding up a bike trail is brutal. Until when? Until it's not. What happens? The bike trail doesn't change, you do. And subsequently, your experience of the bike trail does what? It changes, right? So simple and difficult, what is it about? It's not about the bike trail. Simple and difficult is about you, right? So with business coaching, landscaping, roofing, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, it's like level in sales, the levels of marketing and the levels of business are exactly the same, right? So what's the problem? Like people chase fast results, right? And they end up overwhelmed, tired, broke, and confused. They want to quit and do something different. In the last, few podcasts, I've mentioned this, but like movement. What do you want to do with movement? You want to avoid it at all costs within reason. There's nuances to everything, but I can tell you the guy that changes his career every 5 years because he gets bored, I don't need to see his bank balance to know that it's probably not monstrous. And yes, there are nuances, right? Maybe he learned a lot and it was each business was a step up in level, then that would be a different deal. But I don't think that's what ends up happening, right? So why you mistake movement for progress, right? The mistake being busy for being successful. So choose the opposite path of what Warren Buffett and the Charlie Mungers and the Ray Dalio would recommend. And that's the slow, thoughtful, and disciplined way, right? While everyone is being, busy trying to look rich, I'd be busy becoming free, achieving what I'm going to call peace, right? If that's something that you desire, right? Which I think you should think about it or not, because I think that's where a lot of magic in that, according to the Buddhist monks who I enjoy. Look, bottom line, temperament over brilliance. Looking like a big deal is just not the same as being a big deal. But that said, you need to be able to define. So when I say free and I say peace, you've got to be able to define peace for me and peace for you are going to be two different things. Freedom for you, freedom for Road Dog, freedom for me, going to be three different things. So yeah, like, ambition, it's just ambitious people tend to be anxious. You feel unsettled. Why? Because you know that you're capable of so much more. Like real knowledge, real talents, real riches, real wealth. It takes time. I'm sorry, right? Plants don't sprint, they grow. So what people mess up is I think they're always looking for the shortcut, right? As opposed to step by step ferociously, a la none other than Jeff Bezos, right? So I think a lot of people are just trading patience for excitement. And then frankly, they're referring to that as ambition. Um, and the funniest, like, if you really think the ironic thing, and by the way, what I want you to do is take what I'm saying and I want you to think back to the different companies and different friends and the different clients that you've got and some of the businesses you've built, and show me the folks that went fast and then show me the folks that went slow. I think you're going to find the steady, boring, predictable improvement kind of direction and angle. Um, kind of work. Like I've owned my own company. Like I've owned the company that I own today for, I don't even know how long. It's 17 years. It's actually longer than that. It's actually, anyway, let's just call it 18 years for the sake of the argument. But most people can't manage lack of excitement. So they never make it to excellence, right? So, like one coaching clients with results at a time, right? Maybe I'm trying to bring it back to business coaching, right? What's going to happen? Referrals are going to flow. Your brand is going to grow. Your prices are going to increase. Your competence is going to go in the right direction. Your confidence is going to flow like it's never had before. I got tons of example where business coaches get going. Like we've got a frame where you can get clients, you get to find your fees before you even get started. We got the operating system going to be installed, but they're not quite ready and they charge like $5,000 a month, 60 grand a year. They take on 3-5 clients. How does the story end? They went too fast and it often ends in a less than desirable way. In some cases they make it, but I got to tell you, those that make it also, I mean, they work their absolute backsides off, and a lot of the other areas of their life go in the wrong direction, right? And Charlie Munger, he would say that time is your friend, but only if you don't disturb it, right? So again, problem, most people pull up the roots of the plant to check if it's still growing, right? What happens? You end up with a dead plant. Like that's like buying and selling a house when you would have gained so much more just by holding it long term, right? Yeah, but Carl, I need some cash or I want to buy a second one. Well, you borrow against the existing house tax free using the equity that you've already built up in the house. And again, it's tax free. It's borrowings, not earnings, right? So, and it's like in business, seek problems no one's looking to solve, right? Like, because they're not exciting. So translation, the number of times I'll meet a coach and they're getting started and they want to go to realtors and dentists, right? Your eyes would water if you knew how many times I've heard those two niches. Where would I recommend you go? Go to home services, go to plumbers, HVAC, waste management, logistics, a car wash, a roofing company, a landscaper, like boring industries that create millionaires with freedom, right? But they become the average person will become a realtor instead. Why? Because of the sexy. They tell us they love real estate, right? They're familiar with real estate because they own a house. They've lived in a house. They're familiar with it. So that's kind of what drives them. They see the big numbers. Well, you tell me how many realtors make money, and your instincts are correct. 5% make all the money. The 95% fight for the rest. Not an industry that I would recommend. And by the way, there's no recurring revenue. For the average, for a realtor operating like as a traditional realtor, bad idea. And bottom line, the best lives are those with the best choices. So create, kind of moving towards freedom and, moving towards a peaceful life. I think that's a higher level frame. But business fortunes, they hide behind inconvenience. Most people lose to the competition. They don't lose to their competition. They lose to their own bad habits and their need for movement, right? Like talented people fail because they don't control their impulses. Just think of a guy who was highly, highly elite at football, hockey, baseball when you were a kid, and the consistent guys ended up making the pros and making the millions of dollars playing the sport. All sports are filled with them. Exact same in business. Business is ultimately a sport. So common discipline behavior beats raw intelligence every single time. That would be unfair because intelligent people build big things. But attention is today's currency, and everybody's trying to steal yours. Be ruthless with what you consume. Trade dopamine for discipline, fewer headlines and more fundamentals in history. And rather than look to the Facebook ads to solve all your problems, rather than allowing your client to look at Facebook ads to solve all of their problems that they think they have, you got to go to the fundamentals of business. What are the fundamentals? Upsell, downsell, cross-sell, proper upfront offer, control costs on the way up. That, by the way, is the foundation of my operating system that can be installed in any business, wildly, wildly profitable. but it gives you a framework. It gives them a framework, makes life really easy. Because remember, Shoots, I'm going to throw it back to you here, but like compounding happens in every area of your life, not just money. It happens in relationships. It happens with knowledge. It happens with your consistency. It happens with your character. Small decisions compound over time. And by the way, they compound both good and bad. So yes, anxiety is the price of ambition. And I think it's one of those problems we got to solve. It's something you got to manage. Something you got to manage, Shoots. Anyway, so that's my answer, bud. I don't know how that is, but there you go.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Anxiety is the price of ambition. Just like pressure is a privilege. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I was actually thinking of that earlier. That is, yes, love it. Could not agree more.
It's so good. So just remember that, folks. If you're under pressure, it is a privilege to have that pressure. And maybe you don't see it yet, but at some point, I can tell you from my personal experience that there are moments where, like, I remember one day there was a huge windstorm and I'm literally watching my back fence fall down. And I'm like, for the amount of stress that I've gone through in my life, I looked at that and I went, oh, well, it's only a fence. Who cares? Like, it's one of those things. It's all relative. Listen, folks,
can I give you this, Shoots? 1 sec here. Just this too shall pass. This too shall pass. But that's it, man.
There it is, folks. There it is. Well, thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Hey, if you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, you aren't getting Karl's daily emails. Like, come on, man. Get those daily emails. Or you just want more information on how to build, grow, and scale your coaching company, visit focus.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe and also share with a fellow coach as we are trying to make our impact on as many coaches as possible. While you're at it, please feel free to leave us a review. That is it for another week. We will see you inside of the next episode. Remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.